you are enjoying your time at home. Today we will talk about Module 5, Management and Control. Last week we discussed the demand-side logistics. So after our study, you should understand the demand-side logistics is dealing with the relationship between the company and its customers. We discussed two important topics. The first is customer order cycle. For this topic, you have to identify different stages, like order transmittal stage, order processing, order picking and assembly, and delivery stage. So there are 4 different stages involved in the customer order cycle. You have to understand the impact of each stage on customer service and what actions can be taken to improve customer service. The second topic is about demand forecasting, especially for different methods that can be applied to conduct demand forecasting. Today, we have 3 objectives for Module 5 for inventory management. So the first is about some basic and fundamental information about inventory management. The second is inventory cost. Inventory cost is a very important topic in this module. You have to understand the balance between inventory cost and customer service. The third objective is to apply different methods to manage your inventory. So these are objectives for this module. Before we discuss inventory management, there are some questions that may attract the company's attention, such as what is inventory? What is inventory? Why does the company need inventory? What are the inventory? And what types are there for inventory? So you can think about these questions and try to find answers. So these answers to the questions will help you better understand the inventory concept. Actually, inventory is the stock of any item used in the organization. For example, raw materials. Raw materials can be input for a manufacturer to produce products. So raw materials can be inventory, a kind of inventory. It's similar for finished products, component parts, and consumed supplies and work in process. So all these items will be used in an organization, so they can be the inventory. Regarding the why the company needs inventory, the basic reason is to meet future demand. We will provide more details in this module. Okay, we have understood inventory is very important, and inventory can take different forms like raw materials, finished products, component parts, blah blah. So they can take different forms, but in practice, a high level of inventory might be unacceptable. So it means a company sometimes is unhappy with high levels of inventories. Actually, high levels of inventories can result in high levels of inventory cost. So the companies will be unhappy with this. We can look at this table. We look at this table. It shows the importance of inventory cost to the total logistics cost. I think we have discussed the logistics cost in Module 1. We identified different components of logistics cost, such as inventory cost, transportation cost, and warehousing cost. So these three types of cost are the major components of logistics cost. Now we focus on inventory cost. So we look at the first column shows the year. The second column shows the value of business inventory. So for each company, inventory is usually taken as a kind of asset. So here it shows the value of business inventory. Next, inventory carrying cost. Next, inventory carrying cost in terms of billion. Then total logistics cost in terms of dollars, billion. The last column shows inventory as a percentage of total logistics cost. Here I wanted to mention 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth column, inventory carrying cost in terms of dollars. This column equals the value of business inventory times inventory carrying cost in terms of percentage. So it means 396 equals 2064 times 19.2%. So you will get the inventory carrying cost. Now we move on to the last column, inventory as a percentage of total logistics cost. It equals inventory carrying cost in terms of dollars times total logistics, divided by total logistics cost. So we consider the year 2010, so it means 32.7% equals 396 divided by 1,211. So you get the inventory as a percentage of total logistics cost. Okay, now we focus on the last column. We find the percentage was around, or it was above 30%. So this column reflects the importance of inventory cost to the total logistics cost. So normally high levels of inventories are not acceptable in practice. Okay, now we have a question. Why are people stockpiling toilet paper? So, especially recently, it is a very interesting thing. So, you can think about this question and share your comments or your opinions in the discussion board in Milo. I think you can view this question. You can view this question from the type of product perspective and from the company's inventory replenishment strategy perspective. Okay, this is inventory, the importance of inventory. The next question, where are inventories? Where are inventories? We have studied different types of inventories. And for different types of inventories, they can be kept in different locations. We look at this fig. So, like raw materials can be kept in a mine or a factory or import port. Raw materials are transported from origin to a manufacturer, and we look at the inbound transportation. In module 1, we discussed two activities. One is go activities. The other is storage activities. So here, inbound transportation and outbound transportation can be seen as storage activity or stop activities. So it is for temporary storage, like truck, the train. So inventories can be kept in the truck, in the train, and then raw materials arrive at the manufacturer for the production process. So there are different types of inventories, including production materials, in process, and finished goods. So all these will be kept at the factory or at the manufacturer. Next step, outbound transportation. So inventories take the form of finished goods. So airplane or truck can be keep inventories for temporary storage, and then these products will be transported to warehouses. So inventories will be kept in warehouses. Finally, they will be delivered to customers. So in this fig, we can identify different inventory locations. The locations are based on the types of inventories. Okay, next you can understand why does the company need inventory. We have discussed the supply and demand and about the uncertainty. Another important reason is the economies of scale. Especially you can consider consider inventory from the perspective of just-in-time principle. So according to just-in-time principle, raw materials and components arrive at when they are needed. So if we look at this question from just-in-time principle, it seems that there is no need to keep inventories. No need to keep inventories. But in practice, unexpected events happen. So there may be some disruptions of the supply of raw materials. So if there is a disruption in the supply of raw materials, it will affect the availability of products, and then it will affect customer service. So we need to balance the inventory level and customer service. So for each company, they would like to keep a certain level of inventory to balance supply and demand and against uncertainty. Now we move on to economies of scale. It is easy to understand, and also it makes more sense from purchasing advantages, transportation advantages, and manufacturing advantages. For example, normally a higher volume, you will get a lower purchasing price, and higher volume, the unit transportation cost will be lower. Also, the unit manufacturing cost will be lower. So there are economies of scale. So companies would like to hold inventory. Previously, we talked about different types of inventory. Now we can classify inventory into different types based on their functions. So there are cycle or base stock, there are safety stock, there are in-transit stock, and speculative stock, cyclic stock. So this classification is based on their functions. Like base stock is to satisfy normal demand. Safety stock is to guard against uncertainty. In transit, and next is in transit. For example, outbound transportation and inbound transportation. These kind of inventories are in transit stock. Also, there are speculative and cyclic stock. So, based on different functions, inventory can be classified into different types. The next question is how to manage inventory, or how to replenish your inventory. There are two different philosophies. One is push, and the other is pull. So we look at push-based inventories. push-based inventories, it means allocate supply to each warehouse based on the forecast for each warehouse. So it is more like to make the decision from top level down to bottom level. So it means the plant will forecast the demand for each warehouse, and then allocate the specific quantities to each house. So from top level to bottom level. On the other side, there is pool-based inventories. So this is to replenish inventory we are based on specific needs of each warehouse. So it's more like to make a decision from bottom level to top level. For example, each warehouse will forecast their demand, and then the demand information will be transmitted to plant and make a request, and then plant will allocate the requested inventories to each warehouse. So it is from more like from top level, from bottom level to top level. So push and pull are two different inventory philosophies. Here we address some information about two philosophies. So pull-based inventories are demand-driven, but push-based inventories are based on the historical ordering. Now you may wonder when the inventory should be replenished. So inventory, when the inventory is used up, replenishment will take place. We can look at this fig. It shows the inventory cycle and replenishment diagram. When you look at this fig, you have to understand the meanings of different lines. The first is the left to right sloping line. So you look at rate of demand. So it shows the demand for inventory. We find it is linear. This line is linear. So it means the rate is constant. The second is the vertical straight line. It means replenishment takes place. It is instantaneous at that moment in time. So the third is horizontal dotted line. It shows the average level of inventory. Also, the horizontal axis shows the time, and the vertical axis shows the inventory level. So as time goes by, you will find inventory is gradually used, and when the inventory reaches the safety stock, replenishment takes place, and then you need to place an order. The order will be delivered. When the order arrives at your company, inventory levels will go up. So it shows the inventory cycle. We discussed in practice, high level of inventory might be unacceptable because it will result in high inventory cost. So we needed to identify what components are included in inventory costs. There are three major components: carrying cost, ordering cost, and stock out cost. Actually, carrying cost, ordering cost are easy to understand. Stock out cost, you needed to view this cost from opportunity cost perspective. Okay, we will talk about them one by one. First, inventory carrying cost. We look at this fig. It shows the different sub-components for carrying cost. There are capital costs, inventory service costs, storage space costs, and risk costs. So different components for inventory carrying costs. Also for each component, there are specific cost elements or cost items. For example, capital costs, it is inventory investment. Service costs include insurance and taxes. So for storage space costs, there are 4 different elements, and risk costs, we identified 4 elements. So this is inventory carrying cost. The second is ordering costs. So ordering costs are involved in different inventory ordering activities. For example, cost of receiving an order. So you needed to invest labels to receive inventory. So their wages or salaries will be cost. So this is a kind of ordering cost. You needed to conduct a credit check. This will result in ordering cost. So all these activities will result in costs, and these costs are classified as ordering costs. Next is stock out costs. Stock out cost is they are estimated cost. Also, the higher the average cost of stock out, the better it is for the company to hold some safety stock for protection. So it means there are stock out costs. So this will encourage company to keep safety stock. So different types of inventories. We can look at this table. It shows the determination of the average cost of stock out. So how to estimate stock out cost? We look at this table. In this table, we identify 3 types of customers. So you can identify your customers as brand loyal customer, switches and comes back customer, and lost customer. For the first brand loyal customer, it means when there is stock out, this type of customer will delay their purchases and until the products are available. So this is a brand loyal customer. Here in this table, we find the probability of being a brand loyal customer is 0.1 or 10%. So the probability is 10%. So we can calculate the average cost of this type of customer. So average cost will be the loss times probability. The second type is switches and comes back. It means when there is a stock out, this type of customer will switch to another brand and comes back when this product is available. So the probability of being this type of customer is 25%, and for each the loss is 37. So average cost 9.25 equals 37 times 25%. The third type is lost customer. So it means when there is a stock out, the customer will switch to another brand or go to another shop and never comes back. So you lost the customer. The loss is 1,200. And the probability is 65%, so you can get the average cost. Finally, you can calculate the average cost of stock out. It will be this 789.25. So this is the average cost. It is an estimated cost. Okay, this shows the determination of the average cost of stock out. Also, we can consider the trade-off between carrying cost and stock out costs. Previously, we discussed if a company carries a high level of inventory, it will result in higher carrying cost. But at the same time, if the level of inventory is higher, there is low probability of seeing stock out. So it means stock out costs encourage the company to keep high level of inventories, but carrying cost encourages the company to keep a lower level of inventories. So in practice, you need to get a balance between carrying cost and stock out cost. We can better understand the trade-off from this table. We look at this table and we focus on the first column. It shows the number of units of safety stock. And the third column 25% annual carrying cost. So we find as the number of units of safety stock goes up, when the number goes up, we find the carrying cost goes up as well. Also, we look at the last column. It's stock out costs. So avoided, we find when the number of units of safety stock goes up, the stock out costs, it is declining. It is declining. So you need to get the balance between carrying costs and stock out costs. Next, we need to understand the average inventory. Average inventory is the mean value of the maximum inventory and the minimum inventory. So it equals the maximum plus the minimum and then divided by 2. For example, in this fig, if the minimum inventory level is 30,000 and the maximum level of inventory is 70,000, we can use the definition to calculate and get the average inventory. It will be 50,000. Also, here we find the minimum inventory level is 30,000, and all these include transit stock, speculative stock, and safety stock. So we get the average inventory. Now we can consider the amount of order or the size of order will affect the inventory level. So we assume the working days is 240 days per year, and if it is a large order, for example, ordering 600 units, we look at the left fig. It shows the size is 600. 600, we look at the horizontal axis. It shows 600 units will be used up in 60 days. And there are 240 days. So it means the company has to make orders 4 times. Okay, this is a large order, and for each time we can calculate the average inventory. Large order, so the minimum is 60. The minimum level of inventory in the left fig, it is 0. And the maximum is 600. So you can calculate the average value of 0 and 600. So it is 300. It is the average inventory level. And you can calculate the turnover. It equals the total sales divided by average inventory. So in this case, it equals total sales. Total sales can be found by using order size times the times of making orders. So every 60 days the company will make an order, and there are 240 days. So every year the company has to make four orders, and for each order the size is 600 units. So the total sales will be 600 times 4, so it will be 2400. And the average inventory is 300. So the turnover will be 2400 divided by 300, so it will be 8. So the turnover is 8. Similarly, if the order size is small, for example 100 units, you can calculate the average inventory will be 50 units. So we look at the right fig. The minimum level is 0 and the maximum is 100. So the mean value is 50. So the average inventory will be 50 units. The turnover equals the total sales divided by average inventory. So the total sales in this example is 2400, and in this case, the average inventory is 50 units. So 2400 divided by 50 equals 48. So it is the turnover. So you can get the conclusion: smaller replenishment order quantities result in lower average inventory. Lower average inventory will result in lower inventory carrying cost. Okay, this is an example about the order size and average inventory. Now the next question is when to order and how much you should order. Regarding the ordering time, there are two systems. One is fixed order quantity and the other is fixed order interval. So for the fixed quantity system means every time the order size is the same, but the orders will be placed at different time. So constant order size but different time interval. On the other side, fixed order interval, it means for example every week or every day or every quarter, every year. So the constant time interval, but every time the order size is different. But in practice, you can try both in practice. Next, we need to understand the reorder point. So it means when to order. There are two different situations. The first is when the demand and the performance are certain. In this case, reorder point equals demand times lead time. So the average performance cycle, the lead time. So it is a minimum amount of an item. So it means when the inventory falls to this amount, the item must be reordered. So you need to replenish your inventory. So this is the minimum level. If safety stock is needed, so if the demand and the performance are uncertain, you need to consider safety stock, and the reorder point equals daily demand times lead time and plus safety stock. So by using these two formulas, you can calculate reorder point, and you need to know when to order. So when the inventory level is below this level, you need to make an order for replenishing your inventory. So first, there is no uncertainty. Here is an example. So daily demand is 40 units, and the replenishment cycle is 4 days. So according to the forum, the reorder point is 40 times 4, so it is 160. So when there is uncertainty, for example, the safety stock is 40 units. In this case, the reorder point should be 160 plus 40. So it will be 200 units. So for the company, when the level of inventories falls to this level, the company needs to make an order. Now the next question is how much to order. We are going to introduce the economic order quantity, or EOQ model. This model is based on some assumptions, and when these assumptions are met, you can calculate and do some mathematical operations. You will get the formula of EOQ. I have prepared some steps for calculation, so you can find a document in Milo. It shows how to derive EOQ formula. So if you are interested in the detailed calculations, so you can refer to the document. Anyway, if we get after some calculations and operations, you will get the formula of EOQ. Now you can apply this formula to calculate the amount of ordering. Here we have an example. So what you need to do is to find these elements for this volume. For example, in this example, you need to find what OC is, what D is, what HC, what C is. Okay, in this example, you find these indicators. I will post the answers and the answers and the steps in Milo. You can refer to the answers. But I wanted to say in this example, D this case, it is 1,000. It is 1,000 coffee makers per year. So annual demand is 1,000. And C is purchase cost. Purchase cost. In this example, purchase cost is $78. The cost of each coffee make is 78. So C is 78. Next, OC, the order cost. The order cost will be 100. The ordering cost is 100 per order. So OC is 100. Next, HC, the annual carrying cost is 40%, and lead time is 5 days. So what is the optimal order quantity? So you get D, C, OC, HC, and use the EOQ formula. You will get the result, and it is 80 units. It is 80 units. For the second question, what is the reorder point? We find there is no uncertainty. So reorder point equals daily demand times lead time. In this example, daily demand equals the annual demand divided by working days. So the working days is 365 days, and the annual demand is 1,000. So daily demand equals 1,000 divided by 365 days. So it will be around 2.74. And then you get the reorder point equals daily demand times lead time. So it equals 2.74 times 5. It will be 13.7, or you can round it up to 14 units. So this is the EOQ example. We have discussed the trade-off between stock availability and cost, inventory carrying cost. So it means if there is a higher level of inventory, it will result in higher inventory carrying cost, but it will result in low stock out probability. It means the stock high level of stock availability, and higher stock availability will increase customer service, because when you want to buy products, they are always available. So customer service can be increased. So you needed to get a balance between the service objective and the cost objective. And for different inventories, there are different methods. How to manage your inventory? We have different approaches. The first is very simple. It is Pareto principle, or 80-20 principle. When we apply this principle to inventory terms, it means 80% of a firm's sales are normally from 20% of its inventory. inventory. So we need to focus on the 20% inventory. We needed to focus more on the 20% of inventory because they make a higher contribution to a company's sales. The second is ABC analysis. ABC analysis is an extension of Pareto principle. So we can look at this fig. It shows all the items in a company can be classified into A items, B items, and C items based on their contribution to total sales. In this example, we find 20% of items are identified as A items, and they make a contribution of 65, almost more than almost 65% of the firm's total sales. So 20% items contribute to total sales with a percentage of about 65%. And the next type is B items. So 30% of items contribution is about 20% of sales. So the contribution is about 20%. The rest of the items are C items. So it is 50% of items. They will contribute to total sales with a percentage of 15. So based on the percentage of items and the percentage of contribution to total sales, we can identify A items, B items, and C items. But the detailed or the specific percentages are different from one firm to another, and from one product, from one company to another. So they might be different. Next, we have an example for showing how to identify ABC items and what strategies should be applied to manage different types of items. So the example is showing in this table. We look at item number. So there are 10 items. Second column shows unit cost, and then annual demand, total cost per year, and the usage as a percentage of total usage. So the first step is to rank items based on the usage as a percentage of total usage. So we rank the items. We look at this fig. You find the highest percentage is for 107 item. So it is the first item in this table. and it has usage as a percentage is 48.8%. So similarly, you can identify the second item is 101 because the percentage of usage is 32.5%. And then you can get all the other items and you can present their respective usage. The second step is to calculate the cumulative percent of items and the cumulative percent of total usage. Okay, we get this column, the cumulative items and the cumulative usage percentage. And then we can identify ABC items. So for this example, A items include 107 and 101. The percentage of items 20%, and the usage percent is 81.6%. So it means 20% of items in this company will contribute to the total usage with a percentage of 81.6%, and the items are 107 and 101. So for A items, the company should take action is close control. Need to pay the most attention to class A. For B items, it's similar to identify 4 items, and for C we get 4 items and take actions to regular review or infrequent review these items. Okay, now we can move on to the inventory turnover. Equals cost of goods divided by average inventory. Actually, we have discussed this previously, so you can use this formula to calculate inventory turnover. Inventory turnover will be affected by the type of product. For example, for fast-moving consumer goods, you will find that the turnover is very high. It's very high. And for the perishable food, it is very high. And fashion, clothing, also you can calculate the inventory turnover. We look at this table, the turnover ratios. So it shows the relationship between average inventory and the turnover. So for different companies and for different types of product, the company should determine a suitable turnover to make their replenishment plans. In practice, there are some collaborative inventory replenishment programs. For example, the replenishment programs, quick response, and vendor-managed inventory, and profile replenishment. These will be discussed in detail in supply chain management. Okay, this is for module 5. Module 5. So we have 3 focus objectives. The first is the concept of inventory. So you need to understand what is inventory, what types of inventory, and why do we need inventory. The second is inventory cost. And you need to get a balance between inventory carrying cost and customer service. The third is about different methods that can be applied to manage your inventory. So the important method is EOQ and the order point. Okay, so this is module 5. If you have any questions, you can call me or you can send me emails. Okay, see you next week. Bye.